So let's pretend this piece of paper is our 1 meter of calico. So you'll have the length running up and down and your selvages on the left and right. And what you want to do is measure in 15 centimeters from each side. So I've measured in 15, 15, and then I'm going to cut these off, which is going to leave me with these two strips. So if you fold the strip in half, it's an idea before you do that, if you just trim off the selvage, because it's tighter woven there, and later if you come to wash it, it might make it sort of shrink up, like it like pulls and shrinks up and won't lay as flat. So if you want to trim that off, and then fold your piece in half, and then fold your sides not quite to the center. Leave yourself a gap. It's a bit like bias binding, so you got a gap so that when you fold it in half again, you don't have bulk here. So you folded them nearly to the center. You can probably leave about half a centimeter on each side, and then fold it in, fold it across, and then machine up along this edge, and they will become your straps for your bag. Once you've cut the sides off, fold it up to the top, and then you will stitch on either side, just half a centimeter in on either side, machine stitch with a number 2 stitch. So machined in half a centimeter on either side, and then you will bag it out. Bagging out means to turn it inside out. So you will pretend I've turned this in the other way, and it's machined. So you stitch half a centimeter in on each side with the number 2 on both sides, and then you turn it inside out. So when you look on the inside, it will be like this. And then what you'll do is you'll come and top stitch this side. So you're going to stitch about here so your seam allowance doesn't peep out. So you stitch there. So if you look at it like this, I will come along. If I'm looking at where my seam allowance is, it's about there. I'm going to stitch just outside of it, again with the number 2 stitch. So if you look at the real thing, I've machined my half a centimeter, 5mm seam allowance, turned it inside out, and I've stitched again. And if you can just see the shadow of the first stitch line you did the seam allowance is just there. So you've encased your raw edge within that. It's called a French seam. So if you look on this side, there shouldn't be anything peeping out. There's a little bit of a thread. Just pull them out, and it encases it. So this encased seam will become the inside, so it won't fray or anything. That's a French seam, so do that on both sides. So once you've made your French seam on both sides, find your corner, and your crease line from corner to corner, you're going to match them up. So you'll end up with the corner like that. So that's the corner of the bag. So you've gone from that, you just pulled it out, you matched this line up with the seam line, pull it out, so you're creating a triangle. So you're creating a triangle like this, and on this side, this is where I've machined it. So you can see my crease line of where I folded the bag in half. I've matched it to the seam line on the side. And I'm measuring in 12 centimeters in on this one. And then I've squared it and I've stitched across. This will make the bottom of my bag that wide. So if you want it narrow, you can sew it in, say 10 or 8, depending on how wide you want it. So that's the 12. Say about 10 there, 8, so that's the widths you're going to. So your choice how deep you want the bottom of your bag to be. And once you've done that, push your triangle to the bottom of the bag. Put it to the bottom towards the center, so each side pointing into the center, and then you're going to top stitch it along there to secure it to the bottom of the bag. So if you look at, here's one that's done earlier, it's been machined to the bottom. And that gives you a little bit more structure there. If you wanted, you could put a piece of cord to make a firm bottom, fix it in there. But that's your choice. Then we're going to go to the top edge. And if you turn it down about 2.5 inches, you can overlock that edge. If you don't have an overlocker, just turn it under and top stitch. You'll top stitch around, but just press it for the time being until we put the straps in. So prep it by pressing it or overlocking it. Turn it down and your 2.5 inches and iron it. So creating the straps, so this is the straps the way I showed you to fold them in earlier. Oops. When we folded them in earlier. Folded them in, we stitched it, and I've stitched it on both sides just so it looks a bit nicer. You don't have to do that, it's your choice. And then what you do is measure in 18 centimeters from each side. And with the straps on the same side, so you've measured in 18 centimeters and pop it in right up to the folded crease. So right to there, so you can see. And then fold it back on itself. And then you're going to stitch a block and a crisscross in it to make it really secure. So you're sewing them on both on the same side. And then do it again on the other side. Once you've done that, you can stitch the rest of the top down. So along here, if you've overlocked it, or if you turned it under, just stitch all the way around. And then you've got your bag. Very simple. Use it for a shopping bag, or you could use it for your books.